How many ears does a Vulcan have?
How many?
It's got the left ear, the right ear, and the final front ear.
Shut up, Wesley.
This is The Final Frontier, a Treksphere podcast all about fan films and fan film chewy goodness. I'd like to introduce our host and the brains behind this operation, Adam Mullen.
You forgot my
Did
name.
you have to look up his name?
I just woke up. I'm a little groggy.
Oh
This
my
snow,
gosh.
the snow, man.
The snow, it's snowpocalypse.
So say hello to the brains of the operation, Adam Mullen,
Hi.
Hi.
and our guest interviewee, the man we're all here to talk to, Randy Landers.
Hello, guys
Hi.
and gals.
And I'm the reason why Adam needs 9 different editing programs on his computer to make this show sound coherent. I'm Bill Allen.
It's actually not that far-fetched.
Yeah.
You should look into Audition, man. It's works
Yeah.
for me.
I've got Audition, I've got Premiere, I'm using Audacity, whatever I can use to make Bill look good.
Yeah.
But you told me you weren't videotaping, so how are you going to make him look good?
Oh,
Well,
you
that's
know
the
what?
first
Make 'em
step
sound
is
good.
audio only.
Yeah, make him sound good.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
My mama always said I had a face that was born for radio.
My mama always said, quit wasting your time and leave that Star Trek stuff alone.
Well, so we go to our news. Do we have any awesome news in Star Trek land?
We have news. It may or may not be awesome. Quentin Tarantino is in serious talks to be directing the next new Star Trek movie.
How do we feel about that?
I am ambivalent. When he makes a movie, it's either really, really good or it's really, really god-awful. Usually when he tries to go artsy-fartsy, he makes the god-awful stuff. When he's just trying to make some simple popcorn fare, he ends up adding depth and nuance to it that makes it more than just a popcorn flick.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I figured he'd be better suited to make a Star Wars movie because he's a Trekkie, but he's also like a huge cinemaphile. He makes so many references to classic movies and genre-inspiring movies. And when you look at the stuff that George Lucas used to influence the original Star Wars movie, a lot of those samurai films and the old spaghetti westerns and things like that, that's the kind of stuff that is straight up Quentin Tarantino's milieu. So he could really do Star Wars and give it the classic Star Wars feel. I have no idea what he's going to do with Star Trek. It's got a pretty good shot of being good. Apparently, Patrick Stewart said in an interview that if Quentin Tarantino was directing, he'd be interested in reprising his role as Captain Picard. So if Patrick Stewart says it's a good idea, let me be the sheep-like fan and do whatever the captain says.
Randy, do you have any thoughts on this?
Tarantino likes to steal from Japanese movies in particular, so I would love to see what he does, such as Goku the Monster from Hell. He loves that one. Of course, Lucas stole from the Dam Busters, a British movie about trying to blow up a dam where the Germans were producing heavy water. It's the attack scene of the Death Star almost. I am always looking forward to seeing what directors will do. If you had told me Seth MacFarlane would make a better Star Trek than J.J. Abrams, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah, I honestly would have liked to have seen another one by Justin Lin. It surprised me. I mean,
Did you like Neon?
I actually did. The story was the kind of story you'd expect from an old episode. You know, they were debating whether or not, working together, relying on others was a weakness or a strength. And that's the kind of subtle thing that does. And he had a lot of those touches his visualization of warp drive looked probably closer to what a warp drive would have looked like. There were a few things that were just bizarre. The fisheye lens, looking at the weird angle of the ship during launch and things like that. But everybody used to make fun of him because he was from Fast and Furious. But when you watch Fast and Furious is basically Star Trek on a drag strip. It's an action-adventure series that has an underlying plot that's all about some kind of moral question. In Fast and Furious, the question was, should you do what's right or should you do what's legal? And that was the issue the undercover cop had to wrestle with as he bonded with the criminals he was investigating. And that's the kind of question that Star Trek tackles. Not with undercover cops and drag races, but with aliens and fast starships.
I am surprised that you liked Beyond. I have met so few fans that like Beyond, and I don't understand it. I think it's probably the second best.
Yeah, I've run into it the other way. Most of the people who don't like Beyond wrote off all the new movies right away, and they don't like any of them, and they just tell you that over and over again, so it looks like a lot of people don't like it.
It reminds me of that episode of Family Guy where Rush Limbaugh accuses Brian of being a contrarian, and that's exactly what these fans are doing. They're being contrarian. Arr, we can't stand Star Trek. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. And, if you don't like it, don't watch it.
Yeah.
I've given Discovery a couple of chances, and I don't like it, so I don't watch it. But God forbid me from trying to tell you that you can't watch it and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
See, and that's the part that's missing is those guys that are all live and let live about what they don't like. It's like there's three kinds of fans out there. There's the kind like me who soaks up anything with the Star Trek name. There's the kind that uses Star Trek as a stick to beat other people over the heads with to demonstrate how superior they are. And then there's the fans like you who like what they like and don't give people a hard time over what they don't like. And when they see something they like, they decide they're going to make some more of it.
Yes.
Which is why we're here today. Look at that. I segued us right in like I know what I'm doing.
Nice segue. Extra points for that.
This week's question of the week is, which ship was not a participant in the war games assigned to field test the experimental M5 computer? Was it A, the USS Constitution, B, the USS Potemkin, C, USS Hood, or D, USS Lexington? So you get to think about it. If you have the answer, that's great. But we'll come back. All right?
All right.
And we can begin the interview. So, Randy, when did you first start watching Star Trek?
1966. I was 5 years old. I was in first grade, and Star Trek came out, and my parents watched it, of course, the week before to make sure that, because back then parents watched stuff the week before to make sure it was worth watching. And the following week, they introduced me to Star Trek. I may have teasingly said my mom told me not to do stuff with Star Trek, but no, they've been very supportive, and my parents were fans as well. And once I saw it, I was hooked.
Bill, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah. I wasn't there for the original air date. I grew up with Star Trek on reruns. So if I remember correctly, they aired Mantrap first when they went live, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first episode your parents saw was the one with the salt vampire. And then they came and said, yeah, this isn't too scary for a kid. Really?
I don't think that's the first one that they saw. And I'll tell you, Georgia was I grew up in Atlanta, in Metro Atlanta, and I think they had a different air date. I think there was some special that they ran the first week.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't Star Trek that they saw. They didn't see the Mantrap until much later. As far as scary, before that, they were letting me watch The Outer Limits, which was pretty freaking scary. So, the Man Trap is basically an Outer Limits episode anyway.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I guess relative to The Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone, the monsters in Star Trek were...
Well, it's I didn't mean to interrupt, but it reminds me of what made me fall in love with Star Trek is the monster of the week in when we learn that the Horta is not just killing things, it's mom, and it's defending its young. And Devil in the Dark by Gene L. Coon is, to me, one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek because, that and Errand of Mercy with a little twist at the end as well. That's what I love about Star Trek. And that's what made me a fan, and it's what made my parents fans.
Are they still with us, your parents, or?
Dad passed away a couple of years ago from a stroke. My mom is 80 years old and was over here last, for Thanksgiving. That's 2 weeks now, I guess. And we watched, the BBC is running, or BBC America is running Star Trek, the original series, and they're leaving the commercials alone, so the episodes are running about 70 minutes instead of 60. And they've got the newer special effects. And Mom and I are both kind of torn about those newer special effects, but man, they do look good. So we were pleased as punch to sit there on Friday evening and watch some Star Trek.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of episodes with those new effects, and I think it's interesting how they made it look better without making it look like it wasn't the 1960s. They somehow held on to it. It's not like a jarring disconnect from the live footage they used.
Yeah, it's not. And I like seeing the different ships and the different planets. Every planet has its own unique thing rather than the generic green swirly planet that we see every week. Yeah. Oh, it's blue this week. Oh, it's red this week. I can do that. I can do that in Photoshop, guys.
Yeah, the first episode of Potemkin that I watched, it was a green swirly planet in the background.
It was, wasn't it? Let me guess. Did you see? Green swirly planet. Was it Delivery by any chance?
It was the old guys, the little vignette.
Oh, the old guy. Yes, there is a green swirly planet in that one too.
Yeah, I kind of binge watched through most of Potemkin this week just to know what I was talking about when I came in.
Potemkin was fun to do.
So how did you get into fan films?
That's funny. If this were video, I would turn the camera around. I am the editor-in-chief of Orion Press, and I've been publishing Star Trek fanzines since 1979. I have a FanQ award-winning number of zines. We sold probably nearly 100,000 of the things. Everything from original Star Trek to Deep Space Nine and Voyager, lots of Star Trek The Next Generation. And then I lost a lot of interest in modern Trek when Endgame came out from Voyager. I got ticked off, and I said, okay, well, and I stopped doing the modern Trek and just concentrated on classic Trek. And then I was reading this thing called an article in a magazine called Paragon's Paragon. And the next thing you know is I'm looking at these guys, and it's a Super 8 movie, and they have made some really cool stuff. It looks like an adaptation of James Blish's Spock Must Die. And I'm reading, and I'm like, I wonder what that's about. So I go on the internet, and I find the Farragut film, and I watch Farragut, the first episode of Farragut, And then I watched An Exeter. Then I watched Face. It was New Voyages at that time. And I said, I can do that. And I said, I've got writers, I've got stories, I've got editing. And next thing you know is I said, let's do this. And everybody, Ricky Thompson and Van Buchanan, they helped me build the bridge. And they said, you think this is going to work? And I said, I don't know. And we get a cast assembled of actors, stage actors from Albany, Georgia, and including Jeff Green, who's the drama professor at Georgia Southwestern State University, and an actor who's done work in Hollywood, who's done stage. He's a Kennedy Center awards winner. And we sat there and figured out we can do this. And, when you can sit there and say, gosh, we can do this, and then the next thing you know is we started writing more and more. And I think we got the training wheels off by the end of the first season, and we've been going ever since.
So what is Potemkin Pictures? Because it's not just Potemkin, right?
No, when Adam, in 2013, this guy walked in and bought my business. I was a print shop, just bought my business. And I'm like, okay. And I took the proceeds and created a studio and actually filmed commercials for various TV stations in South Georgia while building a Star Trek studio. And the Star Trek stuff is non-profit, but, I was making commercials for people. And in 2015, a couple of years later, after I get the studio built, of course, my wife says, we need to move to Birmingham. I'm taking a job there. And I'm like, oh, my studio. And she says, well, move it. And I'm like, okay. And we moved to Birmingham on February 13th, 2015. And within 2 months, I had contacted a number of local fans. And there were more. Well, Birmingham is 14 times the size of Albany in terms of population. So I had 14 times the number of people wanting to do Star Trek films. And so we had to let Potemkin, the actors from Albany didn't want to drive over here to film, and I don't blame them, it's 240 miles. So we got the local actors, and it was far too many for one production. So I said, well, let's create a bunch of productions. And so now there's a whole bunch of productions. And we're still zero budget. We're still not making any money. I stopped making commercials because with a town this size, there's plenty of video commercial operations. I actually drive for Uber and Lyft right now. And I work part-time doing that, and then I come home when I feel like it, or go to work when I feel like it, and the rest of the time I'm over here working. Like yesterday was a snow day. I finished an episode of a new production.
What can you tell us about that?
Triton is a little different than our other productions. We've got several different productions. Triton's function is a diplomatic ship. And so we wanted to introduce Janice Rand. We have an actress who's, a beginning actress, and she's a model, and she's wanting to get into acting, and we're like, okay, we can do this. So we invited her over, and we had a guy who's been playing a Commodore in a couple of our episodes. And we said, dude, you're in command. Here's your new first officer. We're going to have an introductory little thing. And we shot it. It looks good. Sounds good. And I've sent it off to be scored today, in fact. But the Triton's mission is going to be diplomacy. And we've already seen the Commodore have a diplomatic mission already, and he's going to have more. we're hoping that diplomacy is going to be an interesting thing because, diplomacy is the skill of talking other people into doing what you want. And that's going to be Commodore Allwine's mission in life, is to get everybody to behave.
I watched a little bit of Kupak, which is your
Klingon series.
Klingon battlecruiser. And then, of course, I watched Potemkin, which is Constitution class.
Yes.
And then you've got some others. I haven't watched any of them yet, but if you give us a quick rundown, Tristan.
Tristan is a delivery service ship. Their function is to deliver supplies to various colonies. All of our short films now take place in Quadrant 9, Sector 72, and they're all delivering. It's 40 some odd planets that are Federation colonies, and there's always something going on. The Tristan's function is to make deliveries, though. They'll deliver medical supplies. They'll deliver parts and machine parts that the colonists might need. They'll occasionally investigate, where did the shipment of radon go, that sort of thing. But it's a delivery ship, and its first captain that we introduced was Captain Walker, who is he's kind of a country bumpkin of captains, and a lot of people didn't like him, and then they realized that he is just a big old hillbilly in space. But Keith decided after filming for 2 years he wanted to go on and do some photography instead. And I said, okay. So his executive officer, who is a woman, has become a captain, and her episodes will be her films. I gotta stop saying episodes. They tell me her films will start coming out in 2018. Aside from Tristan, we have Demos, which is a police cruiser, and these guys go around and they bust you for trespassing on a planet, or they'll bust you for speeding through a star system of heavily trafficked sort of thing. It is literally a police cruiser. Kupak is the Klingon battle cruiser, and we actually tell stories from their point of view. And not every, what is our tagline? Not every story in the Alpha Quadrant involves the Federation. The Klingons have their own thing, and we have one of those per year. We have a hospital ship. We have the Marie Curie. It's a hospital ship. We've got a exploration ship like the Enterprise and like the Potemkin. It's another Constitution ship. It's the Endeavor. It comes out once a year. And that one is really it's an Outer Limits type show. One a year sounds like we wouldn't be able to tell a lot of character stories, but we can tell some Outer Limits stories. And we actually have one in the works and this will be an exclusive. I haven't mentioned this to very many people. The Alexander is a warship. It's like the Enterprise B, and their first production was shot locally using professional actors that wanted to do a Star Trek film that were told that they didn't have the sets, they didn't have the budget. We don't have the sets, and we don't have the budget, but we got sets. And we invited them to come down here from Atlanta and Huntsville and Meridian, and they all came together and shot a pretty solid Gorn production.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I actually have nothing to do with it other than the fact that we'll release it on our channels and everything, but it's their baby. I got to meet Indiana Fuentes, who is what do they call those guys? They're on The Walking Dead. is it the Messiahs or something like that?
Saviors.
Saviors.
Yeah.
He's a savior, and I'm like, wow, cool. So I got to meet him and a couple of other actors and actresses, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with their Star Trek story.
Are there any plans for multi-ship crossovers?
We've done a few. In fact, in the final episode, and I can say episode for Potemkin, the final episode of Potemkin, you can actually see 3 of our other ships, the Deimos, the Tristan, and the Endeavor. All 3 show up for rescue operations for the crew.
I haven't quite finished watching all of them yet, so.
I'm giving you the wrong ending. I'm blowing the ending for you.
No, you don't. You're not blowing the ending for me. It's like, hey, I want to see a crossover. Hey, guess what? There is a crossover.
There is a crossover, and there's going to be more. The actors are designed. The actors are basically cast for a series, but like poor Zach Weiss, who's like 20 years old. He's 5'11". He weighs maybe 110 pounds. He looks like a very young Leonard Nimoy. And, Zach, got to put some ears on you. Oh, what series am I in this week? And he gets to play the guest Vulcan, but every once in a while we pulled a one of those gray masks from one of the costume stores over his head. And he's a gray in one episode. He's just like, what the doctor? It's hilarious. And he puts himself into every role. And I think he's been in just about every one of our series as an alien or a Vulcan.
He's the fan film equivalent of Doug Jones.
Or Whit Bissell, But you're right. Doug Jones is a much better. I've got to tell him that. He'll like that. Because it's just perfect. He's got the right body type, and he's, one of the things about our sets is people think that they're small sets. They're smaller when you're here. Believe me, they film much larger than they are, and he fits so perfectly on those sets. You come in here with a 6'4" actor like Lee Drew, plays one of our security chiefs in Deimos. Lee's having a hard time fitting onto that set. It's like, Lee, you need to kneel down so I can shoot this. No, Randy, I'm not kneeling. So I've got them out there right now. There's a work day out on the bridge set, and it's to construct bulkheads over the top of the set so that I can shoot from the lower deck up at him without seeing the ceiling and rafters of the bridge. He's like, why do I have to do this? I'm like, because you're the part of the problem. So.
Now, as I'm working my way through the Potemkin, I mean, one of the things I've noticed that's kind of impressed me I don't always notice it because I'm watching the story, and you tell some great stories. But some of the background digital effects, the terminal displays on computers, the one in the turbo lift, things like that. Are you filming with green screens, or are you just digitally adding that stuff over like a physical, so the actors see something there?
Originally, I was going to put in green screens, and every frickin' actor I had, Rachel, Jeff, Mario, they all said, no, you can't put a green screen. I want to see what I'm looking at. So there's a printout. I still have access to wide format color printers. And we would print out a 10 by 12 applique, and we would adhere it to the flat of the bridge, and then that way they could interact with the panel. And it was wonderful, and it was a pain in the backside. See, I'm actually being very polite and being family friendly. It was a tremendous pain, and God knows I love Andy Ross, but he's got this flowing Jesus hair, and I'm like, what, how in the heck am I supposed to feather this so that it doesn't interfere with the screen? Because invariably he would spin around dramatically, and his hair is partially blocking the monitor. And I'm sitting there in post-production posting a cartoon animation over that monitor. And it's like, my goodness. Do you know how hard it is to mask somebody's flowing Jesus hair? It is like, you really want to get out there with the clippers to fix it. And he'll have a beard, and he'll be twiddling his beard or pulling his hair, and I'm like, dude, stop it. The girls were the same way. Rachel, Abby. Now, Abby had very short tomboy, page boy cut hair, and so she was actually very easy to mask security behind her. And Rachel was fairly easy, but some of the girls, I never knew what Stephanie Burke, who was a weather woman at Channel 31 in Albany, and our communications officer. She chose the name Sharon Ntume because Sharon would be sharing, and Ntume means communications. So her name, Sharon Ntume, means sharing communications. She did that all on her own. So I'm like, what hairstyle is that? Do you like it? And I'm like, no! To be honest, though, when we got here in this studio, we're in Studio 3 right now. When we got to Studio 3, I put it out there. I'm putting in real monitors, and I need to collect donations for real monitors. Within 2 hours, I had donations for real monitors because everybody was so frustrated with the cartoons behind their heads. And I'm like, okay, so I ordered some monitors, and we now have the current series, Tristan, Demos, Endeavor. They all have real monitors, real live-action monitors. Those cartoons that we had running now are running in the background. And they look great. And I'm not having to paste around Andy's hair. And the actors love it because, like, Kristen came in, Kristen, who plays Tenoshi, Kristen Woods, wonderful actress. She came in the other day, you can see it, with little piddly doobly bops on her head, like little buns. And she had one bun on one side, one bun on the other, and purple running down between them. And I'm like, okay. And she says, do you like them? And I'm like, I love them. Because I'm not having to animate around them. It's fine.
Very first episode I watched, the old guys. You're on the bridge with a broken captain's chair.
Yes.
Was the captain? Did you intentionally have a loose captain's chair to set that joke up, or did the captain's chair break and you made up the joke to explain it?
It didn't break. It's an office chair, like the one I'm sitting in, like the one you're probably sitting in, and I built this frame around it. I wanted it to spin. I wanted it to have wheels, casters. I wanted it to be able to go wherever it needed to. And I built this frame about it and blasted. You know, Bill, I was so happy with that. I was so proud of the thing. And I sat down in it and it went, and I'm like, oh, God, no. So it became a joke.
That's always the kind of thing I love to see. It's like, you know, something goes wrong and you make it work. Lightning round just from the hip, as quick as you can. Which captain's chair is your favorite?
Okay. I love the motion picture era, so I would say the motion picture Rathacon Bridge. As far as the captain's chairs that we have now, they're all gaming chairs, so they're all pretty much the same. But I really love me some Search for Spock upholstered captain's chair. Everyone else likes Star Trek 6, and I kind of like that one, but Rathacon is my favorite set.
Comfort, functionality, and classic style.
And cool upholstery.
And rich Corinthian leather. All right, since you're an Uber driver, which of the newer shuttles did you like more, the Delta Flyer or the Runabout?
Runabout.
All right, your fan films cover a wide variety of ships. What's your favorite style of starship?
I like what was called the refitted ones, the ones with the nacelles from Star Trek the Motion Picture. Of our current episodes, I really dig the Phobos, which is the Deimos. The Deimos is a Phobos class cruiser. It's a wonderful model, and it's just got that huge photon torpedo rack underneath it as well. I love that ship. That's the police cruiser.
It looks like a souped up NX-01.
Yeah,
almost.
It really does. It does, and that photon torpedo. We haven't used it yet. We've got one coming up where it's going to be used. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, it really is. We're filming that one in January, so it'll be out probably by October of next year, and it's going to be that photon torpedo. It's going to be used.
Very cool. All right, and final question: what's your favorite color, Swirly Planet?
Swirly Planets, I kind of like purple, and we haven't used it yet because I've been saving it for something special, and it will appear. Somebody told me there are no purple noble gases and blah 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 blah. Doesn't matter. It's purple.
Well, if there's a red noble gas and a blue noble gas, and they're on the same planet.
Yeah. Well, no. My point is there could be algae of some sort in the atmosphere, making it look purple. And I'm really looking forward to doing that one.
Play a little Prince in the background, a little Purple Rain.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the question of the week. Which ship was not a participant in the war games assigned to field test the experimental M5 computer? The Constitution, Potemkin, Hood, or Lexington?
I'm going to guess Constitution.
How about you, Bill?
I'm going to guess the same thing.
You're both right.
Yay.
Well done. And here's a bonus question. Who created the M5 computer?
Dr. Richard Daystrom.
Bill?
Yes.
Yep. Again, both right. Too easy, huh?
Those are. Constitution
Honestly,
never appeared, yeah.
Yeah, that was my thing. It's like I didn't think the Constitution came along as a name until later. I was kind of wanting to guess Potemkin. Like maybe that was your theme for the week, since we're talking about Potemkin. It was the one ship that wasn't there getting blown up by the M5.
And that, of course, comes from TOS Season 2, Episode 24, The Ultimate Computer.
I want to add one more thing, guys.
Okay.
We are looking for submissions. That was one of your questions.
Uh-huh.
We are looking for submissions. The episode that I edited last night was written for a fanzine about 10 years ago. A Janice Rand fanzine, and it never got published. And here we are. We made it into a movie, and we're looking for stories. If the story is good, we will make it work.
I will be contacting you because I like to write scripts.
We love them.
Yeah, we were kind of pressed for time, so we did skip over a couple of those final interview questions, and I feel bad for throwing my weird stuff out there about the chair. But
the chair is a wonderful story, and of all the things that I left in Albany, I regret leaving that damn chair. I didn't think about it because I thought I was going to make one more trip to pick up the rest of the furniture, and it wasn't in the budget. I mean, it's moving equipment with a rental truck costs hundreds of dollars per trip, especially when you're doing 240 miles, and I left that chair. And I donated it to another production that never got off the ground. I left the bridge there for them. And they took the bridge apart and made it into a shuttlecraft. I just, okay, whatever. Whatever.
All right. Thanks for listening, boys and girls. This has been another exciting episode of The Final Frontier.
He forgot the name of the show.
I didn't. I was almost going to say.
Dude, Bill.
I almost said the wrong thing. I was like,
Adam, you're not paying him enough.
I was about to say, this is the Potemkin Project. No, this is the Project Potemkin interview on The Final Frontier.
Guys, I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Randy Landers. Folks, please check out the Facebook page for Potemkin Projects and his other fan films. They've got a lot of good stuff in the works. It really is a fantastic film worth checking out. So we'll make sure to include some links to his stuff included when we publish this episode. Check us out on Facebook. You can find our episodes on YouTube and on the iTunes store. And as we close, I just want to say, and that's the way it is.